Hey guys, Terminator here, bringing you my final video in the Wannabe series. So this video is going to include both how to build a soldier and how to build an archer. So let's get started by looking at the soldier first. So as a soldier, you want to have a similar cost allocation as a cleric, meaning that you want to have around 2 or 3 weapons, and you want to max out your helmets and your armors. As for your monsters, you want to carry mainly fire monsters because that does boost your attack as well as your defense. And those are the stats you want to focus the most on as a soldier because your main DPS, which is, let me show you, dual swords, is based on your attack and your defense stats. So that is why you want to max those two out. But of course, you don't want to be a squishy soldier, so you do want to get as much magic defense as possible. That's why I like to have haste monsters as a soldier. It does help you with your attack and it boosts your magic defense. As I said before, you want to have as many helmets and armors as possible. You get a nice boost from equipping armor, so that's why armors are better than clothing. But I do like this piece of gear because it's quite balanced and I do like the stats, so I have this instead of another armor, for example. As a soldier, you want to have physical testament, but I do want to say that it's very nice to have fatal testament as a soldier as well, but you do want to try to get that on a sword. I believe there is one sword currently in spawn, the Eisen sword, that has fatal testament. So if you do get that, keep it and put it in your main slot. You can also get a Fatal Testament sword from Transmutation. If you do the King Transmutation and you're lucky enough to get the Transmutation exclusive sword that has Fatal Testament XXL, that is definitely a keeper and I'll hate you forever because you're freaking lucky. As for armor procs, you do want to try to get reflection armor. Valkyrie armor is really good for soldiers. It's really good for any class, but especially for soldiers because you do get that bonus from your class and because it's armor and it has high magic defense. So definitely do the Valkyrie spawn if you're a soldier, and when it comes back, save as many gems as you can and just throw them all in there. So, just to recap, as a soldier you want to have 2 to 3 weapons, max out your helmets and max out your armors, and for monsters you want to focus on fire monsters if you can. But if you need that extra magic defense boost, you equip haste monsters or water monsters. So as for the number of monsters you should have, it usually ranges from 3 to 4 depending on how much cost you have left over. I normally don't quest as a soldier, so I don't really have that many sets to play around with, but from what I've heard, this is a pretty decent set. It's like a staple set for good soldiers. So you want to have EE as always, and then you want to have attack stance. As a soldier, you have really high defenses, so increasing the amount of damage you receive by 25 it won't kill you basically. Dual swords is your highest damaging attack. So this is based on your attack stat as well as your defense stat. So if you have really high defense stats, it doesn't really matter if you have weak attack stats. I think dual swords is one of the most OP attacks in the game. Not only can you do a huge amount of damage based on your defense stats, but at the same time, it's really a good attack for PvE as well because it aggroes the monsters. And the cooldown is only 10 seconds. 10 seconds for a high damage dealing attack. And the cost is quite hefty, but compared to double sting, which doesn't do as much damage, it's quite unfair, I would say. Like, soldiers have it real good, but then there's so many people complaining that soldiers need a buff. No, soldiers do not need a buff. Lancers need a buff. I've seen archers get one-shotted by dual swords, and if you're a hybrid soldier, meaning that you're a lancer at heart and then you want to be a soldier, you'll still do a good amount of damage because your attack will be really high. But as you can see, I do have quite a few lancers equipped, so at the moment my attack stat is not at its max. And if I were to max it, I think I should be able to hit around 70k. But what I'm trying to say is that even if you are a Lancer or a damage dealing class in general, you can build a decent soldier, just not the best because of your cost allocation. So even if you are a mage, you can play around with the soldier. Just get as many armors and helmets as you can, and if you're good with swords, equip those, and fire monsters slash haste monsters slash water monsters. I usually play as a soldier during Coliseum because I found that soldiers just get a lot higher in terms of score because they're usually left for the last and they can survive among us. And with Coliseum, it really depends on what kind of role you like playing. There's either the DPS soldier or the support soldier. So I never played the support soldier, but this is what I heard you should bring. You should have like charisma or knight's loyalty, and then like maybe an attack too, but it really depends on what you're comfortable with and what you've been playing around with. I've never played around with a support soldier, so I don't know how well it goes. But for my set, what I bring to Coliseum is usually Heaven's Breath. This is the only time where I will encourage bringing Heaven's Breath. Other times I hate it. It's just such a pussy move. I have Heaven's Breath, Dual Sword, Divine Smash, and then I don't remember what the other attack was.
One eternity later.
Dual Swords. That's your highest damage attack, so I bring it because I usually like to kill things, so I bring attacks instead of playing support. And Divine Smash, your second highest DPS skill, and then Guard. Guard is just for those times where you know a mage is attacking you or is trying to kill you with their meteors, and then you see them doing meteor, and then you just guard, and usually it reduces the damage taken by a lot. So I love that. Alright guys, this is probably the saddest archer you've ever seen, but I just want to give you an idea of what you should be doing as an archer. As an archer, your main mission in guild versus guild battles is to be a crystal breaker. So what do you want as a crystal breaker? Well, you want as many fatal testaments as possible. So most of your bows should be fatal testament, but if you can, you also want to have Secret of the Arrow, which procs circle snipe, high circle snipe, and lethal, as well as imaginary. So this is the best ability you can have. If you can, do get Secret of the Arrow. And you also want to have Heart of Phantom if you can, even though it just procs one imaginary shot, but having that imaginary shot proc will boost your damage by a lot. As a crystal breaking archer, you also want to have hats and clothing that have fatal procs. So the China dress and the China buns, they're really good for crystal breaking archers. So this is the China bun I'm talking about, fatal testament, and the China dress is also fatal testament. If you're not lucky with those spawns, you could also get fatal testament armor here. Where is it? Right here. So as you can see, this is fatal testament as well as this. So a lot of archers just equip a crap ton of these armors, right? Like they have 5 or 6, and then 5 or 6 of these hats, the China bun hats, and then they just dish out a lot of damage. So if you're doing that kind of build, then you don't need as many fatals in your weapon arsenal. And if you have a lot of these, Heart of Phantom or Secret of the Arrow, do equip them instead of like fatal testament. But I think a good balance would be to have like 2 or 3 of these other types of skills, like either Heart of Phantom or Secret of the Arrow, and the other 3 would be your fatal testaments if you have those procs on your armor, if you have those fatal procs on your armor. As for a crystal breaking archer, for your monsters, all you need to do is have a shit ton of green monsters. That is the only way to go, because green monsters boost your attack as well as your magic attack. So farm a lot of Alices, and if you already got a Kirin, awesome for you, because that's a staple monster for crystal breaking archers. Green Valk is really good to have, and as well as a Sheena. So if you have those 3 monsters, then you're really set for the monster department in as a crystal breaker archer. As an archer doing regular quests, you just keep the weapons, you keep exactly the same, but obviously for your armor you want to be less squishy. So just equip your regular armor, any type of reflection, and you want to have a balance of defense and magic defense. I would say like a 35-35 is a really sweet spot for archers. For monsters, for regular questing, you want to equip as many utility monsters as you can. Don't focus so much on equipping all greens because that can make you quite squishy. I've never played archer, as you can see from my set, but as a crystal breaking archer, this is what most people bring. They bring, I don't know, lethal strike, wind of courage, and then where's imaginary shot? Here it is. Okay, this is what they usually bring for a crystal breaking set. If you have a full backline filled with archers, meaning that you have 5 active archers whenever you go into crystal assault, then one of your archers can drop wind of courage and bring like a bestial shout. But most of the time, this is what archers would bring. For general questing, you would basically see the same thing. Your archers should have lethal strike and imaginary shot, and either another attack such as high circle snake. If the quest calls for more support, they might even bring like a balance or even cheer. And sometimes in quests, there are those monsters with really high defense, so most of the time with low AP attacks, you'll do one damage. So that's why archers sometimes bring Berk Snipe with them. It's really good for Mobius if that ever comes back. I really hope not, because that was the most boring shit ever. But if it does come back, as an archer, you should definitely carry Berk Snipe. Hopefully that video was helpful for you guys, and if you do like the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And if you have any comments or if you want to just say hi, please leave a comment below. As always, thanks for watching. There's no sound that no one knows. What does the fox say?